This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's good, folks? Welcome to an afternoon edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills, powered, of course, by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Erik Turner. And Erik, I don't even know if we're probably going to do any more shows after this because the Bills season is done.
Throw in the towel.
Bad preseason week one loss. Things are over. Vibes are bad. Schematics are bad. And we're going to dive into a lot of that, but also some of the positives that can be taken away from that first game. We've got real football kind of, again, that's back now that the preseason is hit. And for a lot of fans, and even for us as well, I would say, pretty ugly start to the preseason for the Bills against the Chicago Bears, who ran away with the game in the fourth quarter. But we saw some sloppiness. We saw some undisciplined nature. We saw a lack of execution and fundamentals in certain areas. But again, within that darkness, there are some really good individual standouts and player evaluations. And we're going to be talking about a lot of it in this episode today.
Yeah, talk about player evaluations. Today in this episode, we're going to be looking at several players, a lot of the positives, a lot of the negatives, or as we titled, the Playmakers and Heartbreakers of the Bears game in preseason, week one of preseason. We'll be going over a bunch of those guys, one-on-one type, highlights and spotlights. But yeah, I mean, results-wise, it was disappointing. Of course, It was disappointing, but it was a preseason. I saw overreactions on both sides that were a little too much for, how bad they lost, but also a little too, hey, clinging to all the positives. So I saw it on both sides, but again, it is preseason. And one thing that, you have to understand is that the preseason is not a results-based type of game. It's more about evaluating for the coaches, the staff, and these players, and, who can stand out. And again, we're going to talk about some of those guys. There aren't any audibles. There aren't any checks. It's a limited number of plays for both sides of the ball. It's more, kind of based on different technique, schemes, and concepts, and how those players execute those techniques within the structure of the Bills scheme. And so, it's more important that the guy knows his assignment necessarily, than, okay, did he beat a Pro Bowler like in preseason of week one? So those are the things that the coaches are evaluating. And so we're going to try to look at this game against the Bears in the same lens, or, with the same lens. And so as we go through some of these players, these Playmakers and Heartbreakers, keep that in mind, that it's very vanilla. There's not much scheming going on. And as you heard Connor McDermott talk about, he said, we didn't scheme any plays. The run game looked rough, and we're going to get into some of that stuff, but just keep that stuff in mind when we're going over this film. But I will say, it's an afternoon edition of the film room, but we have new film, and to us film junkies, we've watched this game several times already, both sides of the ball. And so we're excited to bring to you guys our opinions and thoughts on some of these players from this Bears game.
Yeah, it was nice to get back in the rhythm of it. I was out of town on Sunday, so I didn't get to the film really until Monday. I did like some stuff real late night Sunday, but nothing intense. But yeah, it felt nice to have 2024 game tape to go through and watch and kind of see what was going on. And, it is a fine line with the preseason, right? In an ideal world, you want to see the team performing well and players performing well, whether it's the first teamers, second teamers, third teamers. You want to see success, but there is a fine line between wanting to or being disappointed in performances, but also not being too distraught. Like those, what do you glean? How do you glean? Where are you, like, what are you taking from it? Is it something on an entire side of the ball? Right. Is it a player? And yeah, it's funny, you mentioning kind of, I feel like a lot of the takes after that first game were on both sides of the extreme. I feel like you had a lot of the camp that was like, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Everything's fine. And then the people on the other side that were like, kind of, burn it down and start a new franchise because everything is terrible. And it's also funny too, coming on the heels of training camp where like you see a Keon Coleman highlight and everybody's ready to be like, see, you never needed Stephon Diggs. Keon Coleman is that next dude. It's just like, I think it's all part of, people trying to find things to cling on to and attach themselves to, because there hasn't been actual football and actual real things, and then like a lack of sample size and a lack of play and all that stuff. But despite that, there were some really, again, legitimate, good, positive nuggets from this game against the Bears that were kind of buried or hidden a little bit amongst the grander, and larger poor performance from the team as a whole.
Right. And, one of those playmakers I thought in this game really started on the offensive side of the ball. And that was wide receiver Khalil Shakir. Very limited playing time, but from the time he was in, you can immediately tell how important of a role he's going to play in this Bills offense. He was lined up outside. He was lined up inside. They gave him the responsibility of those option routes. The ball was finding him in those high leverage situations, the third downs, the fourth downs. But then you also saw some of the physical stuff where he caught that short pass, and we're going to break it down here in a minute, caught that short pass, used a little pacing after the catch, and then accelerated up the boundary and up the sideline. So it was kind of cool to see his usage, his alignment, but also how he's being targeted in those high leverage moments.
Yeah, he's somebody who really came on as the season went along last year, and he had a lot of hype, I think, from fans early in this offseason. And I think as the offseason went on, I felt like the shift in focus kind of went more towards Dalton Kincaid. And then you have the drafting of Keon Coleman. And I feel like with all the highlight type plays he's been making in camp, he's been a focal point as well. And it felt like Shakir, I don't want to say he's been forgotten about a bit, but kind of maybe fallen down the kind of like mainstream fan pecking order when it comes about guys that get talked about. But he showed up, early and often in this first preseason game against the Bears, and especially considering the lack of sample size and the lack of first team reps, the fact that he got those targets and in those high leverage situations, like you mentioned, when it mattered from both Josh Allen and from Mitch Trubisky, I think it kind of speaks to the potential season he can have, but more importantly, how he's viewed within the offense, not just by Brady, but as the guy who's pulling the trigger in the quarterback, with it being both Josh Allen and Mitch Trubisky finding him when they needed him.
Yeah, and here's Josh finding Shakir to the top of the screen. And I talked about, he's lined up outside 2-by-2 formation, and the Bills are just running a coverage beater here. He's just running a little stop route right here to the top of the screen. And once again, as I said, Josh finds him in this 2-beater type concept. It's one that we've broken down several times, right, Ant? You have a dig route right here. Then you kind of have this like shallow in-breaking route, but, versus two high structures, they kind of throttle down right there. And you'll see Shakir do that versus this structure. So you can see the timing between Josh and Khalil, and then again sitting in that window right there, catching the ball. And it does look like he does, tries to get up the sideline here. But either way, again, early in the game, getting Shakir involved on second down, setting up a manageable third down.
Yeah, this was after, the first play from this series, the unsuccessful run attempts. So you're sitting there at second and long, and you just want to get something positive. And Shakir does a good job, like you said, reading the coverage, finding the space, sitting in it, trying to get upfield. He gets close, I feel like, initially to breaking the tackle before he gets double teamed and taken to the ground, but makes it into that third and manageable. And again, I think this is a nice situation, seeing him work outside. Again, I feel like a lot of the conversation around him is, oh, that next great slot receiver, and he can take over for Beasley and this and that. And I think lost in that is the inside outside versatility that he does have in his game, and that he showed at Boise State.
And here's another one that I didn't like, though, but it is a third down, and they're trying to get it to him to the bottom of the screen. And I didn't like it because this is third down, and he's kind of running that option route right here versus 39. You can see he's setting up either the outbreaker or the inbreaker. But I didn't like the depth that he ran this route. You can see at the top of the screen, this is the first down marker. I didn't like that he ran it short of the sticks here. And, of course, at this point, this is with Trubisky in the game here. And the ball's not a bad ball. It's a little ahead of him, but still, I'd like to see him run this a little past the sticks here so that it lightens the load for the accuracy or placement of this throw by the quarterback. But either way, it's out ahead of him a little bit, and now he's short of the sticks. There's no run after catch ability, no yak ability on this play, and they obviously aren't able to convert the first down on third down.
Yeah, fair point. I get that the defender is sitting right there at the sticks, and so that influences the depth at which Shakir runs the route. But at that point, again, to your point, you have to kind of bank on a perfect throw and then a broken tackle. in order to convert this. And my, silver lining hope is maybe you're sitting there thinking like, okay, cool, it'll be fine. Fourth and 2 or 4th and 3, we're going to go for it. But that's obviously not necessarily in Shakir's head as he's running this route. But again, to your point, another example of him kind of reading his man, feeling the leverage, finding the space, and then helping to get some yards to make another high leverage conversion on this next play. And this one is really beautiful.
Yeah, and this is the 4th down play. So maybe they knew going in, hey, let's play it safe. You can run it at the normal depth. You're going to run that out pattern. We're going to go for it anyways. Maybe that is in their mind, prior to getting to the line of scrimmage on 3rd down. But either way, he makes up for it here. Trubisky initially in this 3-by-1 set is looking to the bottom of the screen, and the Bears do a good job of passing off the tight end and running back out of the backfield. So now Trubisky moves on, and you're going to see that route from Shakir come over the middle, just inside the numbers there. He sits, and Trubisky finds him late. But this is the run after catch ability that the Bills want to maximize with Shakir, and I'll show it here from the end zone angle. But I like this because it's obvious man coverage, right? You see the man coverage here, and as the ball is snapped, you're going to see a clearing route by Coleman right here is kind of that switch concept, that option concept. And so with man coverage, now Shakir's making it look like he's going to go outside here. So his defender wants to work over the top, and he does. And so now Shakir just comes back under Coleman, and Coleman is actually open versus his corner. But obviously Trubisky was kind of extending the play from the pocket here and find Shakir beyond the sticks. And then Shakir does the rest. I just post catch here, man, his speed changes ever so slightly. And I want you to watch this because it's almost like he slow plays it initially, and then he hits, the pedal to the metal, like right here, look, slow plays it, and then boom, he's out the front door. That caught that defender off guard.
You can see he kind of changes his gait a little bit and kind of hits like a gallop almost when he comes out of it. It's slow, and then bang, puts on the turbo boosters and takes off.
Right?
Yeah, it's very slight. I figured we wanted to show this play so we could talk about Tremaine Edmonds just doing a great job in coverage and locking down Dawson Knox. Great job, Tremaine. Bills legend, Bears legend, Tremaine Edmonds. But no, this one, he's become so adept at this. We saw, this similar type of play and execution from him last season as well. I'm thinking of when he kind of turned Mike Hilton inside out on that game against Cincinnati on a similar concept where he kind of made it look like he's running that rail route, or he's taking an outside release and going up the sideline, and psych him coming back underneath, and you get that nice little rub and pick a little bit from Keon Coleman. But it's just set up so well from Shakir. And this is, I think, the two aspects that I love, and again ties into what he was at Boise State, the ability to lie and provide deception in his stems and in his routes, which is what he does here. He gets his man to go over the top thinking like, okay, I'm going up the field, or I'm going up the sideline, I'm going outside. And then he puts it back inside. And then that transition, once he catches the ball, to go from more of just a pass catching wide receiver to more of a running back once the ball is in his hands. And both of those things, the deception in his routes and in his stems, and being more like a running back when he has the ball, we saw that a ton at Boise State. And I think that's what has me most excited about him is, as the year went on last year and what we've seen thus far, and again, early 2024, he looks more like that Boise State Khalil Shakir. And I mean that as a compliment. Like his play style and how he was used and operated in college is how he's being used and operating right now in the NFL. And I think that's such a valuable weapon given how the rest of the wide receiver room is constructed, I should say, and how he fits with his role and his skill set and how he can be deployed. This was a huge play, and it was just nice to see everything, from pre-catch to post-catch. It was a legitimate dominant rep for him.
And just a little add-on, I know the topic, one of the main topics coming out of this game was Connor McGovern, not McDermott, like I said earlier, Connor McGovern versus SVPG, who we'll break down later. But this is a play that will kind of separate McGovern currently at this moment against the rookie.
Oh, good call. Yeah, ID in the
McGovern right here calling out that safety blitz even before it even really develops. You'll see it here. He's calling it out right now. And so he's saying, hey, one of the guys they have to watch is they're probably trying to identify the will. Like, hey, if this guy comes, we have to account for him to the wide side of the field here. He's not the one that comes. It's actually the safety. But either way, they were calling out that defender that if, hey, he adds on as a blitzer, they have to pick him up. And if McGovern doesn't call this out, the right side of the line, including him, they're not able to pick this up. And so that identification of, hey, that possible add-on rusher allowed Brown to get out there, let Torrance know that he's got to take the edge now. And so the safety's picked up. McGovern has the nose tackle, and the Bills are able to pick it up. And then they are able to obviously exploit that one-on-one coverage with Shakir against man coverage. So that right there is probably what's going to separate those two guys currently at this moment when you're talking McGovern versus SVPG.
And even within the, first team offensive line's performance, the run game was not good. A lack of push, a lack of displacement creation, but I thought they were fine in pass pro, like overall. And even with the second team as well, specific guys struggled, but I thought the pass protection was really fine for the first team. I thought David Edwards had a couple good reps. You had that call out there from McGovern. And again, the sample size was super, super, super small. And everything, again, is baseline vanilla. And it might not seem crazy, but like just some of the little wrinkles that the Bears were throwing in that, kind of threw the Bills off, like that stuff that you're working out the kinks and you're knocking off the rust. So it's nothing too nuts. But yeah, I thought the first team O-line was kind of fine with pass pro. And I think that was something that kind of got lost in the shuffle for a lot of people, considering how bad the run game performance was. And then how everything kind of, crescendoed from there with the second and third team offensive line and everything from a pressure standpoint and a sack standpoint. So yeah, I thought that was a good call out. So nice from there as well. So we shouted out Khalil Shakir. Another receiver we kind of wanted to acknowledge in this next clip here, in this next piece, is newcomer to the Buffalo Bills, Curtis Samuel. Former experience with Joe Brady, someone who we talked about is obviously, being a guy that Brady knows and is familiar with and would welcome back in based on the year that Samuel had under Brady in 2020. And this clip that we're going to show, Erik, is one that is probably near and dear to a lot of fans' hearts because it is a screen pass and it's a successful one. This is an element, he's much more than just, I think, a gadget guy, but his usefulness in the screen game and as a chess piece really has the opportunity to open up some things for this offense based on what he can do. And again, how he fits in with the rest of the pass catchers.
And it again, this is a small sample, but it was just interesting to see how they use him. It's Samuel's going to be everywhere. They're going to be manufactured touches for him in every single game. And I don't think this preseason game was any different. And so we're going to watch this screenplay, and it's just an extension of the run game. You see this defender at depth. You see him right here. He is off in soft coverage right here. So all Josh does is set up that screen right down from the slot. He's able to get that pass out to Samuel, and then you see the offensive lineman get out in front. This is just an extension of the run game. This is just the Bills taking advantage of the leverage that they have versus the defender that is coming down over Samuel. Get the ball in his hands quickly, and usually good things. It leads to good things when you put the ball in the hands of Curtis Samuel. Yeah,
it's pretty simple. You're just reading the coverage, reading the leverage, and then also kind of doing some math, knowing what the numbers are outside and then the numbers that you can have with that tunnel screen. So it's pretty kind of just cut and dry and straightforward. I like Allen changing his arm slot to get it around Robinson, number 90. He comes screaming off the edge. So if he does a normal kind of, regular throw or over the top, maybe that ball gets batted down or he throws it into Robinson's face or chest. So nice little sidearm. Patrick Mahomes-esque type of throw to kind of get it around the edge player and get it to Samuel. And then again, small little glimpse, but seeing Samuel immediately, like he's so comfortable in these types of areas, like getting the ball, getting upfield. You see where his eyes are. He's reading his blocks. He's got his hand on the hip of Dion Dawkins. Like this is just a very comfortable space for him. And another dude who's similar to kind of Khalil Shakir of when the ball is in his hands, is very running back-esque and not just a wide receiver with the ball, but with his build and his frame, and then the combination of speed and athleticism and some kind of power, the ability to go play behind his pads a little bit. Like he drops the shoulder there on Jalen Jones, number 21, and he finishes this play as if he's a running back, like finishing it. So a nice little physicality at the end there as well.
Yeah, and again, that was a drive starter. That's a great way to start the drive, especially they struck out when you're talking running the ball on first and third down in that prior drive. And so to see them come out and say, you know what, they're pretty stout up front. The Bears are pretty stout up front when we're talking, run defense. And so they're like, you know what? No, let's get our guy involved. Let's get it out on the perimeter, on the edge, and do some things with him. And here's another play.
I was gonna say, hold on. I got to cut you off. I was gonna tweet at you or text you, but I wanted to save it for the episode. How hype were you to see this play and how good of a mesh rep this is? How pumped were you to see this?
I mean, to start the preseason and the entire season off with a successful, well-spaced mesh concept, especially versus zone. I mean, it can only go down from here. That's the only bad part about this, right? It can only go down from here. This has been my bugaboo since Dorsey took over. And so to see this perfectly timed mesh play on third down, in the red zone, I mean, it can only go down from here.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, this is it's like you said, it's so well spaced. The way the linebackers part like the Red Sea and Samuel just sits over the ball on that spot route, like legitimately there is nowhere to go from here but down. You get a really nice snatch trap by Dion Dawkins at left tackle. Like, so there's good blocking up front. Trubisky sees it. Like, Samuel makes himself available. It's so funny to see this in that first preseason game after, like, again, this game was filled with a lot of ugliness and muddiness, but they hit this beautiful rep of mesh, which was something that for the life of them, they could not hit last year. And yeah, it worked out really well. Like, you can see Trubisky eyeing Quentin Morris, who's the underneath crosser on the mesh, which is, your first read right there. So he's looking at Quentin Morris, but he sees, again, the linebackers part. So Edmonds is on Coleman. 53 which is TJ Edwards, I believe, is covering down on Quentin Morris. So exactly, both of those dudes are X'd out. You got nothing. So Trubisky's eyes bring him from number one at Morris back inside. He sees Curtis Samuel declare himself, puts it right on the numbers before the post safety can come down and close on him. This just really worked out, like Trubisky kind of getting through everything and how the route distribution worked out. Real clean, real pretty.
Yeah, I mean, he went through his reads. It's typically you want to look to this one, that's one, and then you see him immediately get his eyes on this hook to curl defender, because actually number two, as you pointed out, is Morris right here after the running back. So that's usually number two, and you see him, he's like waiting for it to play out, and as you said, nice snatch trap from Dawkins, puts that guy on the ground, allows Mitch to step up and feel comfortable in the pocket. And with these crossers eliminated, he gets to his number three option, and that's a sit route right over the ball. Samuel right inside the 5-yard line. So good timing, good work through the progressions. He was more of a heartbreaker, Trubisky was, in this game than anything. But I will say, for this play concept, the mesh versus zone in the low red zone, I'll give him a playmaking nod here, a playmaking star. You can put it on the helmet for him because of how well they executed this play, a play that I've hated for the Bills the last couple of years. And so hats off to your troops on this one, because this one was pretty smooth.
And I was gonna say, this is like a good call too by you of like, it can be tough to kind of run mesh, like the closer you get to the goal line and the lower in the red zone you get because of the spacing issues. And then I did on top of it, like you said, having it go up against zone. So like his eyes want to go to that rail route from Davis, but that's X'd out because of the zone. And then Morris is X'd out because of the coverage. Like, just him getting through everything nice and calm and cool and collected and poised, and how everything worked out. Like, this was, I don't know, this is arguably like the best it's either this or one of the pin and pulls that they ran, which we're going to talk about in terms of like what was the best, like, schematically drawn up and executed play for the offense in this game. But to your point again, like, credit to Trubisky getting through, the rail's not there, the underneath drag isn't there. So let me get my eyes to Samuel, number three, right over the middle, just how everything flowed. It was very clean and succinct, and just, worked out really well.
Yeah, I thought, again, his usage was interesting to me in this game. And again, small sample, but Shakir, Samuel, they're going to be huge pieces to the Bills offense. And so those two were two of the top playmakers in this game early on, small sample, but they stood out, not just because of the plays they made, but their usage, their alignment. And see, more times than not, you see Samuel on that sit route. If you're expecting man coverage, especially in the red zone, you're expecting man. So Samuel, more times than not, you would expect to be one of the crossing routes, so that if it is man coverage and you get that rub, you're getting the ball in his hand and he's able to run after the catch with it. He's able to run away from man coverage. But no, the defense plays zone. He's on the sit route. So it's kind of it's one of those things Joe Brady talk about. The preseason is not just about evaluating one-on-ones, but it's also putting guys in different positions or at different slots and play concepts to see how it unfolds and how it works out. On that one, again, they showed zone coverage. He's the sit route. getting him the ball one-on-one with a safety, I like those odds. And so watching how they used, Shakir in this game and Samuel was fun. And we'll see how it progresses forward. I mean, again, next time they run mesh, maybe Samuel is a crossing route, and maybe one game he's the running back slot. He's in the backfield.
Maybe he's running the rail.
wheel.
Yeah,
dude. So you can do some fun things with both those guys, honestly.
Yeah, and again, their skill sets present the options, and it's just that nice little tweak from Brady. Like Samuel is the closest man to the right tackle, like on the line of scrimmage there, and so you would kind of expect like, okay, like if they're running mesh, he's going to be a crosser, Coleman's a crosser, and then you'd expect that over route or that spot route, sit route to come from Quentin Morris, who's that next man inside. So again, it's just nothing is, and we say this all the time, right? Like nothing that you see in football is like new or some created concept. It's all just how do you dress things up in these little tweaks and these little layers and these little sequencing pieces. And that's an example right there. If you just mesh as a concept, putting the spot route with it, and mesh rail is a basic thing. Like everyone and their mother runs that. But the little tweak there is like, who's running the mesh versus who's running the spot route, and where are you aligning them pre-snap? So yeah, nice for Samuel there, and nice with Shakir, like we talked about. We'll stay on the offense, Erik, and talk about someone who has really kind of been, I feel like, the talk of the town since that game for Bills fans, Mr. Cedric Van-Pran Granger. I always like to say it once just so that I can officially say SVPG for the entirety of the rest of the episode, and that's where we're going to be. I say it slow and succinct so I don't flub any of the words because it is a bit of a tongue twister, but a pretty good debut for the rookie center for the Bills, working with the third team offense like he has for, I don't even want to say for the majority, I think for the entirety of camp thus far, working with the third teamers. But we saw some good movement from him in the run game. We saw his ability to climb to the second level. I thought he attached well at the second level, better than he had at Georgia at times, where he was kind of going more for kill shots than he was sustained blocks. But even within that, we saw some physicality in this game from him, a couple good reps in pass pro, some good awareness in terms of scanning and keeping his eyes on things. So while we do think it is still like early, let's get a proper sample size and let him kind of breathe and develop a bit, it was a good start to his career with this first game against the Bears.
Yeah, I want to see more with his pass blocking, because out of his 19 pass block reps, 10 were on play action passes. Obviously, he was playing with Shane Buechele, who is vertically challenged like I am. So they ran a lot more play action with him so that they can, have a deep pocket. He can see the field better, which didn't even help him in that regard. But I want to see more straight drop back blocks by him in the pass game. But I thought overall, as you said, he attached pretty well, especially if we're talking pass blocking on those play action passes. He's able to do those jump sets and get on the guy, and his hand placement is really good. He's very his targeting with his hands are very good. So he gets his hands inside and he locks on. At times, he didn't really have to drop his hips or pad level because he was just locked on. He was just kind of mirroring the guy, and the guy wasn't really, really rushing at all. But I do want to see more in the pass blocking game. But from a run game standpoint, this is what we're going to talk about today, because I thought we saw shades of early Mitch Morrison Buffalo days where they got him on the move. The Bills used to run so many pin and pull type runs where they would pull him and another offensive lineman. They also would run a lot of weak side option fold blocks where they'd have the guard next to him block down on the nose tackle and then bring Morris up and around on a short pull and insert. And we saw some of that in the Bills run game when, Van-Pran Granger was in the game. So he did go with the third team. Alec Anderson was the backup center in this game and did pretty good. But you can see where the value lies in SVPG. So I'm going to show our fans and viewers here what we're talking about. And it's something that they ran a bunch. And I don't know, for this show's purposes, I don't know, you want to call this pin and pull. I know Nate Tice said this is kind of a zone adjustment, as I talked about kind of that fold block on the weak side run here, but it kind of unfolds like a counter trade because you get the counter trade action here from the same side alignment. But it also is, again, like that fold block, as I've outlined here. You get that pin block right here on the nose tackle. You get SVPG pulling, and then you get the dart pull, like the backside tackle pull. So it's a slow developing play that hits up inside, and it's kind of resembles a counter trade, but it just gives the second level defenders fits because of the different reads. It's not a guard pulling. It's not a backside guard or a frontside guard pulling. It's the center and backside tackle. And this is where we kind of saw, him really get into space and have some nice blocks, talking about SVPG here. And the Bills had the most success in the run game with this concept. They ran it several times with SVPG pulling, and this was the first one that yielded probably the most yards on this concept.
Yeah, this is very like shades of the 2021 Buffalo Bills second half against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers type of action here, with just like pin and pull and getting Morse on the move. And it makes sense, right? Like we've talked so much about pulling the tackles for the Bills because of the athletes that they have with Dion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. And so, lean into the skill sets of your guys. And in this instance, VPG is a good mover. And this one was a nice one. Like you said, it's the first one of these pin and pulls. It was the most successful that they had. And just, you see the quickness and the athleticism and like how clean his movement is as he folds around his guard there. Britton, who's kind of making that down block on that pointed shade. Then he gets to the second level, and it's the attachment for me against 47. Who, shout out to 47. He had a really nice pick six on Buechele later where he kind of baited him and took advantage of him. But that was a really nice clean move from VPG. Again, just getting to the second level, staying attached while also being physical and allowing Darrington Evans to get some good yards there on that play.
Yeah, the Bills ran this play 5 times for 32 yards. So while they did struggle overall to run the ball, when they ran this concept, this gap concept, they're a gap heavy team, have been the last, a couple years. They ran 5 times for 32 yards. And again, that was with SVPG pulling. And so here's another one. And I like this one. And I pointed this one out because same play, but I want you to watch what happens here. So this is the adjustment by the Bears. You get this pin block right here. And what does that defender do? The D tackle, he wants to work over the top and retrace over the top. And so he does it. So now you can't have him just, pulling around because this guy's stringing it out, right? So that would just string the play out. So what does the center do here? He goes back up inside, gets on his guy, and Gore reads it perfectly. And Gore had some really good
He played good. Baby Gore
really
was sweet.
good.
Yeah.
Running game and the receiving game.
Absolutely.
Great read from him. Great read from SVPG, adjusting on the fly, getting north and south. Richard Garage there too, also pretty good on as far as pulling goes. Pass blocking, not so much.
Yeah,
but as a puller, he did really well in this play as well. Those offensive linemen adjusting and processing on the fly to the counter that the Bears were doing. They get an A+ for this play. This is part of the reason why we had SVPG as a playmaker in this game.
Absolutely. Like this one was so nice to see because of exactly like you highlighted. Like, so the Bears are adjusting to the Bills adjustment, and then the Bills are adjusting to that Bears adjustment that they made because they were adjusting, and so on and so forth. They know that we know what we think they know, type of thing. Yeah. But it's the execution of all three. Like it's SVPG feeling that block from the guard gets strung out a little bit by the defensive tackle, so he pops it back inside to get his eyes and body onto 43. It's Garage reading that as well, and then turning it upfield earlier so he can get that other linebacker. And then you get the read and react from Gore putting his foot in the ground. It's just really good adjustment play on the fly from 3 separate players, seeing everything in real time, almost at the same time, and then reacting and operating accordingly. This was a very, very, very nice moment and play in, again, a performance that wasn't ideal up front. But this was really nice. And I think one of my also biggest frustrations was just like the poor offensive line play in the run game for the majority of this game. Like I really wanted to see what Gore could do and what Ray Davis could do. And it just felt like he didn't get a lot of opportunities. And I hate to be this person to lean into this, but man, like Gore he just moves just like his dad did before his dad like tore all of his ACL 75 times in Miami. Like it's uncanny. And I don't know if it's the 20 or the size of the frame, but just how he moves, man. Yeah, it's a cool thing to see. And he played well.
He's just always square. The 20 has something to do with it, especially the Bills uniform, right?
For sure,
but the feet too, they're so quick. And he's just always square to the line of scrimmage. And you see him finish this run really well. Again, same concept, right? You get the full block right there, SVPG pulling, Garage pulling from the right tackle position. They're fitting up perfectly. And the Bears are doing a better job. They're closing down some of this space here. But you see everyone work together. You see Gore Jr. there drop his pads and fall forward. So when it came to the run game, this was their most successful concept. They probably, in no lie, they probably only did run 4 concepts. And that one, again, 5 carries for 50 or for 32 yards. And it was because of that blocking up front by the offensive line. So I know overall they didn't do all that well.
Yeah.
But to me, that concept, especially when you're talking, the players that were in there, you're talking the center position, SVPG, that concept it's gonna be one of the new additions this year. You're gonna see that a bunch because of how well the Bills ran dart. Talked about it. They set the trend with dart runs last year. Everyone's gonna be copying it. If you watch preseason football, everyone's copying it already. That looks so similar that you're gonna have teams and linebackers just flying downhill when they read that tackle pulling. They're not gonna recognize that the center's pulling as well. So that'll be just one way for the Bills to hit a cutback lane as those, the second level defenders fast flow to the ball. There's going to be some big plays off of those plays where you're having a center and a tackle pull, not just a backside tackle on the dart run.
Yeah, it's a nice, layer to that, and kind of something that pairs well with a core staple concept for them. And again, leans into kind of how they want to operate. If you're looking at the starters, McGovern, like we feel like we've talked about a bunch, doesn't move as well as Morse does or did in space, but he's fine enough to get the job done. And either way, it's still better movement than, you don't want to be pulling Osiris Torrance a ton or pulling David Edwards a ton. You want to pull your 2 tackles who are good in space and athletic and big and strong with Dawkins and Brown. And then you can also pull your center and Connor McGovern, who has enough movement skills to kind of make this an advantageous look, especially when you consider the fronts that they'll use it against and the type of, again, pairing
and it's a short
that you
pull,
can
right? It's not like Mitch Morse when he'd get on the perimeter on the edge. He's not like Connor's not that kind of guy.
He's not leading out on like crack toss all the way outside.
Yeah, those short pulls inside on a linebacker. Now we're talking, and that's more his game. So again, I think it just pairs really well with the scheme overall, but also the personnel that's going to be in there.
Completely agree. Any last thoughts on anybody offensively? I'm good on offensive people. Are you cool to move to the defense?
Yeah, you mentioned Dawkins. He was the only other one. We saw at least 2 snatch traps, right?
Yes,
Dawkins
we did. We see 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw 2. He's in midseason form already with it.
Yeah. So from the offensive side, I think that's pretty much it. But I do want to talk about at least one guy on the defensive side.
I have one quick one for the offense.
Yeah.
I thought nothing crazy. I thought Lael Collins looked good with the second team. Okay. I thought, him being at guard, leaning into kind of the size, the experience, his frame, while also mitigating kind of any mobility concerns you have by not having him be a tackle. He had a couple nice support reps for Ryan Vandermark, a couple good, run block reps. Again, I think a lot of it is just because the experience and size and frame. I didn't love him as much as SVPG, but I thought he was another one who I was like, okay, like he looked good, especially when you're watching that second team O-line. No disrespect or anything. It felt like they were all getting blown up left and right. And he was the one that was kind of like, no, I'm good. And I can help out and take care of my own a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he played left guard. And so when I remember one rep where I think it was a linebacker had like a running start, or it was like a looping edge player inside. They had a running start and then they made contact with Collins and that guy just stopped. And he's a mountain of a man. There's no doubt. And so to see him inside at guard was interesting. And I don't think he didn't stand out all too positive or all too negative, which again, is not a bad thing necessarily for an offensive lineman. But if we're to flip sides on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to start off with rookie DeWayne Carter. Obviously, we're a huge fan of his game. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. And a few things stood out for me if we're talking playmakers on that side of the ball. Again, usage, right? Where he was aligned. It was, he played nose tackle at times. He played shade D tackle at times. The reps he led in actual snaps, which makes sense if you're listening to the coach speak we've heard about him and McDermott saying he's going to play a pivotal role. So that kind of made sense. But overall, I thought he played pretty well against the run. Really good use of hands if we're talking, staying at arm's length versus the offensive lineman, not letting that guy get into his body where he can get thrown a little bit because he's not the biggest D tackle, especially on those reps that he was at nose tackle. But I thought overall he did a great job pursuing to the ball. I still think there's a lot for him to improve on, but I
Yes.
thought overall he did make plays. And again, it just the usage and alignments were just so glaring. You can really tell and you can believe what the coaches are telling us when it comes to his playing time and the role he's going to have this year.
That's a good call. He was one that I was and this is another example of like why I always kind of wait for the all 22 before giving real like hard stances on trench play and especially coverage. But I was down on him after like the broadcast game or broadcast, copy of the game. And then after watching the tape, I was just pleasantly surprised, like with what I thought he was in this game from the broadcast versus what he actually was on the all 22. So yeah, exactly. Like you nailed it. Like just the alignments, the usages for him, a couple good reps against some double teams, some reps where he is getting blown off the ball a little bit or knocked around, but he fared better overall versus the run and holding his ground and not getting displaced more than I thought he did initially. So I was pleasantly surprised going back and watching him on the all 22.
Right. Here's one play. Again, it's more so, yeah, okay, he's playing nose tackle here, but you want to just watch his technique. He's not a big D tackle. And so when you watch this play and you see that combination come for him and you see him immediately drop that near knee right there to anchor down and then pop up when that guy goes and gets Dorian Williams, that's A+ technique. Again, technique for a guy of his size playing that shade nose tackle position. It's incredibly important to see him pop up there. Now, does he make the tackle? No, but he did his 111th. And this is what I think the coaching staff is talking about when it comes to him and how he's working on improving his strain. When these combination blocks are coming on him, they're trying to blow him off the ball. He's got to fight physicality with physicality. Here he uses his technique and then it's physicality. Now it's a one-on-one battle. He's there to be stout at the point of attack so that the running back can't cut it back on the backside of this run. And so again, technique was very good on this play. He did his 111th, but he's still a rookie. As you said, there were times where he did get blown off the ball or he was displaced, but this is one of those plays for watching technique. He gets A+ on this one.
Absolutely. And this one I got really excited seeing because, we talked about it when we broke his tape down at Duke once he got drafted. My biggest concern with him was how he regularly and consistently handles double teams at the point of attack, and seeing him drop the knee, period, let alone the timing of it on this rep and the leverage and how he recognizes, he feels that double team, drops the knee, and then pops back up. Like you said, he didn't do enough of this at Duke. So I was extremely encouraged by this rep. And between him operating in that way and then AJ Epinesa just using a long arm to jack up the tight end, they both constrict that running lane and that hole for the running back. And so exactly like you said, Carter's not the one who makes the tackle, but he contributes significantly to AJ Epinesa being able to make this play. It's good run defense from both of those guys, and especially for Carter, who, for me, this was an area of concern. And so to see him execute with this technique and the level at which he executes it, I thought was extremely encouraging.
Right. And so you saw him at nose tackle on that play. You see him at more of a 3-tech on this play. And this one is, we talked about that strain, that ability to fight physicality with physicality, but you can't just be focused in on that physicality, right? You have to track the ball as well. And this one, he kind of gets blown up, loses track of the ball. And now you have that running back hitting that B gap when he should have been right there. He had the leverage right here, but you can see him lose track of the ball, and the running back is able to hit that B gap. So again, there are some areas to, ways to improve still. But I thought overall, again, he did a good job, especially if we're talking how much he played and the different roles he played in the Bills defense.
Yeah. And, Ed Oliver goes down early in the game, so he gets the opportunity to see more reps. And I like that they were using him in a variety of alignments and looks. And this is, kind of where he's more accustomed to playing more of that 3-tech role. And I was so frustrated watching this one on the tape because I was like, just disengage a little sooner and make the play. Like you're in the hole, you're right there. Like you see it just a tad late, but you're close enough. Yeah, this is something exactly your point. Like you want to have that physicality and you want to be able to mash and hold your ground, but you don't want to get lost in that physicality. You still need to play with that headiness and that awareness, something that, we've broken down on this show with Daquan Jones. one of the aspects that we love about Daquan is his ability to mash with guys. But while he's doing that, he's scanning, he's reading the track of the running back, and he's playing mentally while also playing physically. This next one, him crashing down the line, was borderline my favorite rep, along with that dropping the knee one that we showed first.
Right. So here he is again at nose tackle, shade D tackle here. And the ball, it's a weak side zone run. So it's away from him. And this is what I talked about, his use of hands. Look at him, the pop in his hands. It's a stalemate at the line of scrimmage. Now he's running his feet down the line of scrimmage, but staying in relation to the ball right there. D tackle right here. You see him get replaced right there by Carter. He's able to make the tackle down the line of scrimmage. So good hand usage, pop in his hands, stays clean, and then just gets on his horse, runs down the line of scrimmage, pursues to the ball. He's there to make the tackle with Spector.
Yeah, and you get the, Dorian flowing over the top, and then Spector doing a good job fitting as well, kind of forcing the running back to have to cut and then cut again. And Carter makes the play because of that hustle, because of the hand usage. This isn't the easiest, reach block in the world for 79, that right guard, based on the alignment, but it's still possible. And 79 beats him off the snap. Like, he gets a good jump. You can see 79 eyeing Carter
a little bit. Yeah.
100%.
He's already moving a little early.
He's eyeing on him like he's ready, because he knows, man, I got to reach this dude who has, like, he's in between me and the center. Like, I got to get on my horse to be able to get around, hook him, and reach him. And Carter prevents that from happening with his leverage, with his hand usage, and then the ability to stay flat down the line of scrimmage. He doesn't get driven off course. Yeah. He doesn't get too shallow or doesn't get too deep. He maintains the integrity there to be able to play off a Spector and then be there and support. So that's a really good job from him. And then again, shout out to Dorian and Spector, and even Epinesa as well, kind of keeping the edge set a little bit and forcing the running back to cut back, which is something we didn't see enough from the Bills defense, who it felt like they were consistently getting beat to the edge in this game.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about doing their 111th. Williams did a great job there. He's another guy we'll talk about later for various reasons. But so here's Carter again, 3 technique, weak side of the formation. Now he's at the point of attack when that zone run comes. So it's the same exact play, but again, different alignment for Carter. He's at the point of attack here. Once again, look at the hands, eyes over hands, very good extension right there. Fighting, with physicality, and he's doing his 111th. He's forcing this cutback here. This doesn't look like much, but this is the type of stuff that these defensive tackles are asked to do in this defense. Do your 111th, force that cutback so that the others, his teammates, can make plays on the ball.
And that's something we talk about a lot on the show, Erik. Like, if you can make the tackle or make the play on the ball, like, you are free to do so, and that's a good thing. But everyone's job on the play defensively, when it comes to run fits, their job isn't like, okay, go make the tackle. Like, your job can just be stay in your gap, do your 111th, make the running back have to go somewhere else and flow to the guy who's going to make the tackle. Sometimes your job is just to be a deterrent or be an assist man to set up the guy who makes the tackle. And, you nailed it with the fight, like him working to stay over the top and make sure that running back has to cut back to his help. That's good work. We can see where Chicago is trying to get to. You see that initial step from the left guard. He wants to turn and seal him and reach him and hook him, similar to what we saw on the previous play. But Carter fights through that outside shoulder with a good punch. Then he works to get over the top and stay over the top, forces that cutback, and allows his help to make the play inside.
And this is important because you can see as a play is starting off, they motioned this tight end. So they kind of shifted the tight end. So they wanted the Bills, with the tight end being over here, they wanted the Bills to align their 3 technique over here, and they wanted to see how they would adjust with this motion over here. Bills didn't adjust at all. They said, we're still going to keep this alignment. We're going to keep Carter at the point of attack in that 3 tech position. So, some defenses, they'll bump. So they'll bump this guy to the 3 technique right here, and then they would bump Carter over to the nose tackle position. They said, no, we're going to keep it the way it is. We trust that these guys can handle themselves on the weak side as the Bears attack that weak side. And Carter did a great job, as did Kingsley Jonathan, holding that edge and forcing that cutback, and everyone doing their 111th, getting to the ball to stop this play. So I thought Carter did a great job, along with some other guys on the Bills defense. I know there's at least one guy that we agree with who probably would get a game ball or a playmaker, title for this game. Is there anyone else on defense that maybe stood out to you in this game?
I know that one that we're going to speak about, so I'm going to kind of keep that in the back pocket as we as we get into his film. I thought Javon Solomon had some nice flashes in this game. One early on where he read the mesh point between the running back and quarterback and made the tackle at the line. Another one, I think when Bajan was at quarterback on a boot. I don't know if he read the mesh on that one or if he just straight up guessed and sold out and went screaming down the line to make the tackle, which he did, but that was a nice play. And I thought just seeing some of his flashes from a passer standpoint, the dip, the bend, the athleticism, the explosion, the juice, it was encouraging to see. I just want to see how he builds from here. I talked about it during the game and on Twitter and breaking down some stuff. Like we saw him go to that kind of go-to move that he used at Troy last year, where he's flashing the inside hand to try and get you to throw your hands. Then he's going to dip and bend underneath, and he's going to flatten it to QB. And it worked a lot for him at Troy, but against NFL size and length and strength, it's a bit different. So I want to see how he can adjust for that. And then, you pulled him up right now. My big one, I just love JaMarcus Ingram and how he played in this game. His style, the physicality, the toughness, the ability to, because it's not just physicality for the sake of physicality. Him being able to blend his physical in-your-face style while also being sound technically was really nice to see. It wasn't just that he was physical. It was good hand placement, good hand usage, clean, quiet feet. He had a really good day against almost anybody that the Bears put him against, including, the first clip you show here was a really great rep against Keenan Allen, who still is one of the best route runners in football with one of the best release packages in football. Like he's up there still with Devontae Adams in that conversation. So to see that rep is beautiful. Yeah, he had himself a day. We came into this game talking about, what will Kaiir Elam show is corner number 3, and JaMarcus Ingram kind of came out and stole the show a little bit. He had a great day.
I will say, I think Elam also was right there. Those two guys, too, yes. Elam did a great job on the run fit, on that duo run. He came down immediately off the edge, which is something that he had struggled with last year. And then he was in good man-to-man coverage with Keenan Allen on the third down. But Ingram, scrappy, physical. I love how he takes away the option for the quarterback. He does a great job at the top routes when that wide receiver is trying to break. He just chokes the route off and essentially takes all the momentum that the wide receiver gained on his release and drive phase up the field. He takes all of that away, and he did a great job of just mirroring the routes and sometimes running the routes for the wide receivers in this game. He is continuously trending upward, and the reason we talked about, I think in the film room last week, how the depth at corner is just so phenomenal and so exciting, for the future, because the Bills have several guys in queue ready to start at any given moment. And Ingram was a guy, as you said, matched up with some of the starting wide receivers of the Bears and held his own. You see one right there, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. Like, the moment wasn't too big, and regardless of what talent was thrown at him, he held his own.
Yeah, and you look at the variety of guys that he's covering, like you said. So Keenan Allen in one, DJ Moore in one. Number 14 for the Bears is tight end Gerald Everett, so he's covering a tight end. And then 83 was Webster, so that's another kind of more shifty jitterbug type of wide receiver. And then I love this one here. That one there gets me because of the timing and the precision of it. Like, he reads the snap count, drops that inside foot, and then jump presses and buries the receiver. And again, that's what it was. It wasn't just the physical imposing style, and he had a couple good hits and a couple really good jams. It was the technique with it. Yeah, like that. He's aligned in press. And again, being in press is not the same as jamming. You see him look, and he can see that the snap is about to come. So he drops that inside foot, that left foot, gets himself ready, gets his base ready, and then hits that jump press and buries the receiver and puts him in the dirt. Like, that's not just, oh, this dude's a dog, like he's so physical. That's good sound technique. That is a heady cornerback football play, and him blending and marrying the physicality with the technique and IQ. Yeah, and especially against all the variety of body types and skill sets in this game, just a really, really strong performance from him. And like you said, Elam had a good day too. They seem to just really be kind of locking out a solid top 4 here on this team.
Yeah, and I'd say the only the other guy that really stood out on the defensive side of the ball that I would throw under the title of playmaker was Austin Johnson. I thought Austin Johnson was quite possibly the most disruptive player on the Bills
He looked like
against
he
the Bears.
slimmed down, right? Like he kind of like shredded down a little bit. Yeah.
He looked like a completely different player,
Right?
Ant, because you know, we talked about Carter being at nose tackle and Johnson. He was playing more three tech,
Yeah.
and normally Johnson was the nose tackle over the last couple of years, and
He was my guy 2 years
looked
ago.
quick.
We talked about it. Like Daquan was your free agent wish list 2 years ago. Mine was Austin Johnson as that one tech. And like he was a bigger body dude. And yeah, like you said, there it looked like he slimmed down. He's playing three tech. He's penetrating. It was wild.
Dude, he had 2 pressures, was tied for first in this game. 1 QB hit, 2 tackles. He was running stunts with defensive ends. Like it was almost like the Bills purposely put him as the upfield D tackle, that 3 tech, that 4-eye, as opposed to having Carter there. So it was, again, kind of cool to see the versatility in Johnson, because from a pass rush standpoint, I hadn't seen him move like that, to be honest. And so I was like, is this the same guy? Because he was primarily a big bodied, you know, short area nose tackle type, not a guy that was getting up the field at the rate and pressure rate that he was against the Bears.
I had to double take with the tape because I thought I was, with how the jerseys can be sometimes, like I didn't know if I was seeing, because Johnson is 98 and Carter is 90. I didn't know if I was seeing those numbers like wrong. And I was like, am I seeing the 8 as a 0 and a 0 as an 8? And I'm confusing the two of them. And it was just, Johnson looked really slimmed down. He looked quick. He looked fast. It just seemed like he was auditioning to be like Ed Oliver's backup, or like to play in that role of like the pure one gap penetrating 3 tech, as opposed to being more of like a space eater, physical point of attack, shade, or one tech a la Daquan Jones, and kind of where he goes. And it was really interesting to see the kind of role that he played, and especially in conjunction with Carter, and how those two guys kind of coalesced into one another. Erik, we did title this episode Playmakers and Heartbreakers. So we have to get into some of the Heartbreakers. Who's somebody for this game who potentially broke your heart? I like phrasing it that way. Yeah. Who's somebody who maybe broke your heart in this game? Something. It could be a something or a someone.
No, it's players. I'm gonna rattle off 3. We're not gonna get to their film, but 3. I mentioned at least one of them already. Trubisky, I thought he struggled. Did he go through progressions at times? Yes, but there were times where his mechanics looked terrible. You know, working through those progressions he seemed to struggle. There were several turnover worthy plays. You know, Coleman in the red zone on the backside of a pass that was nearly intercepted if Coleman didn't break it up. Gilliam on a curl route, there was a pass breakup there. Down the seam to Morris, he blew that throw. That's a touchdown. So I thought he struggled, and I also think Shane Buechele, who obviously is injured and, you know, probably replaced by Ben DiNucci, I thought he struggled as well. As I said, he struggled to see over the offensive line, first of all. There were times where he was just dropping his eyes, again, because his field vision is just not there when you have the offensive line right in front of him. And then just some inaccurate passes. And there were plays to be made on those, and he was still not putting it where it needed to be. So the quarterbacks essentially for me were Heartbreakers. And then I'm going to throw in MVS, because I thought he's been trending in the right direction. You know, the end of camp and this off season. But then this one, there was one run play where he's aligned off the tight end and they're running duo, and he's got to insert as a blocker, the old Gabe Davis, like role. And he just didn't show that same fight, obviously. And the guy off the edge shot that, D gap and made the tackle. And then the drop pass, like you get a target and you take your eyes off the ball because you're worried about getting hit on a slant route, like unacceptable. And I expected more from him.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. And especially for MVS, like that role, that Gabe Davis type role, like he did that in Green Bay. He did that in Kansas City. Like it's part of what is baked into his usefulness. And so to see him fail there and then have the drop, I second that. Quarterbacks were definitely one for me. I'm not going to dive into that further. You nailed it. Another one, Tylan Grable, and I really, not even necessarily to highlight him specifically, but it just the second and third team tackles, I felt like as a whole were just getting blown up a lot. Grable really struggled. He was getting beat around
especially
the
pass
arc.
Pro, right?
Yes, that's mainly what I'm talking about. Like the pass
run,
pro
I thought run blocking, he was fine on some combination. He created some displacement. Pass blocking though, especially like right side, and then you saw it from both sides basically.
Yep, 100%. He was losing around the arc. He was getting run through his chest a little bit and beaten inside. And some of it, I think, too, Ryan Vandermark kind of fell into that a little bit. I also want to tip my cap a little bit to Austin Booker, Bears rookie edge rusher from Kansas, number 94. He had himself
already this
preseason. He had himself a bit of a day. I knew in the start of the second half, he threatened to run the arc and stab back inside on a spin move. And once he did that, I was like, oh, he's feeling it. Like
the athleticism difference between him and some of the tackles that he faced is like, okay, that's not fair.
It was not
that guy's
fair.
bendy, flexible, change of direction. His agility is really nice. Good length. So that definitely, it looked like he was playing at a different speed than 100%. Compared to the Bills tackles.
Yeah, it was rough. He was just beating him off the snap left and right. And even their other 52 and 92.
Was it 92, right? Was that
92.
Hardy?
Yes, Hardy. Thank you. Yes, Hardy. Yeah,
he was blowing it up.
Yeah, and so I think on the one hand you got to tip your cap to like Hardy and Booker, but then at the same time you have to kind of look at the poor technique and play of the second and third team tackles in pass pro, and so that was a big one for me. Like kind of grouping them together as one group, it just seemed like they were outmatched and just getting, and it wasn't just like, oh, okay, you're getting beat to the outside a little bit. Okay, it was like every other, Vandermark was getting opened up and getting run through. Guys, just their hand placement, there was a lack of pop, there was a lack of placement, just overall not ideal hand usage, not good base. Guys getting out in front or over their feet a little too much and taking advantage of. So the pass pro for the second and third team tackles was really worrisome for me, in particular Grable and then Vandermark a little bit as well.
And I'll say from the top down, like grand scheme of things, the Bills edge players, aside from Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, the Bills edge players were terrible at recognizing and pursuing on crack toss plays.
Oh, it was terrible.
The Bears got the perimeter run going several times, sometimes back-to-back plays.
Yep.
And aside from Rousseau
on simple stuff, like just like zone toss and crack toss. Yep.
And it was so obvious that they were running because they'd motion a tight end right over the DN. And I'm going to point out one guy, DeWayne Smoot, because again, he's a guy that everyone's talking about is going to have a huge role here.
Horrible.
He's the first one that saw it, and he got reached, not by the tight end. Darnell Wright, the right tackle, reached him, and he's aligned out on the edge.
The one on like the fringe of the red zone, right? Where Rap comes down and has to pull up the fullback.
So Smoot, he lost that play, and then he lost contain on some bootlegs like 2 or 3 times. So that was unacceptable. But overall, most of the edge players struggle with crack toss, which is unacceptable. It's something that the Bills have struggled with over the years. Again, I think Rousseau and Epinesa, as far as containing the run, were fine, and setting the edge were fine. But everyone else struggled, and so that's something they're going to have to clean up because they're going to run into that a bunch. The teams love to do it to get the ball on the perimeter quickly against the Bills because the Bills are so up the field, and when they're creating chaos, in between the tackles, they want to get the ball on the perimeter. So I thought overall, the edge players versus those crack tosses, those perimeter runs were awful.
Cameron Klein had a nice rep in maintaining the edge.
He did.
He actually retraced a couple times in pass pro too as well. I thought he overall as a run defender and as a pass rusher, I think he had a solid game. But yeah, I noticed him, and I think the third quarter, him, Andreessen and Takori Couch combined to prevent the run from getting to the perimeter, and then came up and kind of forced everything to make the stop, all three of them together. That was nice to see, just because, again, to your point, like they were getting the perimeter runs were there, like from the first team through the second team to the third team. It was just killing them. It was driving me nuts because that's day one basic football stuff. Like you have to set the edge. You have to be that first player and that contain guy, and they were getting got. Really from everybody aside from, like you said, Epinesa, Groot, and then Klein a little bit, who I thought flashed. But enough sadness, enough broken hearts and tears and all those things. Let's move on to another person who played well in week 1 against the Chicago Bears, Mr. Dorian Williams, somebody who heading into year 2, this potentially could be a big year for him, especially if we see the Bills go with more 3 linebacker looks against heavier sets. Like, could he be that third linebacker that steps in, or linebacker is a spot that gets banged up? If Bernard goes down or Milano goes down, can Dorian Williams be that guy to step up? He's somebody, Erik, who I've talked about, through the scrimmage as being somebody who it looks like his eyes are starting to catch up to his feet a little bit in terms of his processing, starting to match the athleticism. And he had some nice flashes in this game against Chicago.
Right. And I think most of those flashes came against the run. So we're going to start off there. To me, overall, I have him as a heartbreaker, to be honest. But the positives, we're going to show some of the positives, and then we'll show you some of the negatives. Against the run, I thought he was phenomenal. Again, only doing his 111th here, but him inserting right here is a big play. It forces that cutback. Again, doing your 111th, and you see him do a good job of out leveraging the block by the center and making that, that block even tougher, but then dropping those pads, ripping through, winning leverage on the gap, forcing the cutback for his teammates to make the tackle. Here's that play again. We talked about it a minute ago with Carter front side. Here's Williams. Look at the stack and shed here. Leads with his hands, creates that extension with his long arms. And then once again, when that ball cuts back, what's he do? He's right there to make the tackle as well. So I thought, as a run defender, I thought he triggered downhill. He was true to his keys. He did his 111th when he needed to, and he made several nice tackles against the run.
Yeah, the run play was nice in terms of kind of fitting, leveraging space a little bit. The pass pro reps, which we're going to get into, couple were not ideal for him. But him playing against the run, leveraging gaps, and again using that length to his advantage, it's something that I'm really kind of keying in on for him. I thought he had a couple reps in this one too where kind of the block deconstruction or the block shedding for him is still something you can tell like is a work in progress, but when it works for him, it really does work. And just him being able to lean into that athleticism, lead into his length and strength, and being able to pair that with what he's seeing with his eyes and being able to process is something that really could truly unlock him given the skill set that he has.
Right. So I want to get into some of the things that really, he needs to improve on. And this is, you can't compare him to Matt Milano, but he's going to play that kind of role. And Matt Milano has, he's gotten injured again this week. Who knows the severity of that? So this is partly why we're going to dive into Dorian Williams and really kind of scrutinize some of his play, because that role of Matt Milano is so important if Matt is to miss time. And so on this play, you're going to see the Bills pre-snap show too high structure. Post-snap, you're going to have Hamlin drop here in the hook the curl area. And now Dorian is the flats defender here. And the Bills are just dropping out into cover three. It's three buzz there. So you can see three defenders deep, right? Safety is a post safety there. And then you got four underneath here. And this is a play, again, on third down, a high leverage situation where you see him drop right to the sticks. And there's your picket fence right there. Beautiful.
Just sit there.
Beautiful, right? And now you have these kind of curl routes right at the sticks right here by the wide receivers of the Bears. And so if Dorian just sticks where he's at,
just stay there.
Just stay right there. Just to get an example, watch Taron Johnson, top of the screen. He doesn't give any ground. He doesn't fly out wide to get this check down. Again, play the sticks. It's third and long. Instead, Dorian opens up this window right here because he goes out wide to stop the outlet or valve, underneath valve here. And that opens that window. Now Douglas has to come from depth in that cover three look. You have that window. And now DJ Moore is converting. So again, you may think we're nitpicking here, but again, watch Taron Johnson. He doesn't waver. If Dorian just sticks there, he closes that window. The quarterback then has to check it down, and then everyone rallies to the ball. That's a win. Instead, he opens it up, and then you get the first down for the Bears.
The offense is hoping that they can stretch you here to open up that window for that curl route. This is like the definition of kind of those no cover zones underneath for those checkdowns. Like you want that ball, you want the ball to go to that check down. So like you said, you can rally and tackle. Like you choke the space, let him catch that at the 30 or the 31 or the 32, rally to the football. You can still tackle him short. You have the space, you have the athleticism to close down. Like you've got support players there. And instead you can see like he drops and gets to that depth and then sees the running back release out and just immediately vacates. And with this just being kind of like a basic spot drop coverage, this one also annoyed me a little too, because this is what he ran a ton of at Tulane, like basic spot drop coverages. Like the area where he needed improvement was more of the match coverage stuff and more NFL pro ready style of coverages. This should be in his repertoire and in his wheelhouse. And instead he bites on that. And also too, like, it's not even like Caleb misleads him with his eyes. It's not
He's
like he
staring right at it. Yeah.
Correct. He doesn't even peek to the flat. He doesn't make Dorian, like the way Dorian jumps, you would think like Caleb pump to the flat or put his eyes to the flat. And Dorian's like, "Ooh, let me go jump and make a play." No, Caleb goes through his progressions and he's just staring down DJ Moore and just waits for Dorian to clear and then hits it.
Yeah, man. This is where you see some of those lack of instincts when we're talking coverage. He's got it versus the run. He triggers, he fires his gun versus the run. But coverage is where you're going to see some of those issues here. Now, this is a really big play that the Bears got against the Bills, and it's because you'll see right here, Dorian Williams has the tight end and man coverage, but he surrenders Cole Kmet off this play action look. Cole Kmet gets to the corner off the play action fake, and then Dorian is totally out of position, and he's actually pointing to the safety to Kendall Williamson to say, "Hey, help me out here. Help me out over the top here. Go get him." Big play. Hell of a throw by Williams, first of all. Hell of a throw, but a play that seems to get Dorian in trouble all the time. Play action. And again, he's not sticking to his keys in coverage, and he's almost trigger happy. And then you get a good tight end like Cole Kmet on that deep sail route, you're going to get a big play, especially when you have a quarterback like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and it's almost like he played well against the run in this game and almost kind of like got caught living in that space because he just gets completely beat by the play action here. Like he's peeking in the backfield, doesn't even register that Kmet is taken off the line. Like when he realizes it and he's reaching back to try and grab Kmet's already by him.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like he gets beat for a half a click. It's immediately and wholeheartedly. And this is similar to kind of the stuff we saw early on for him against Jacksonville, against New England, against the Giants, when teams would take advantage of his processing or lack thereof and manipulate him with motion or shifts or play action. And that would create those options underneath and like the hook curls and the flats, or in this case, the Bills are in man coverage, cover one, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And yeah, it just gets beat right off the line, nowhere close. Williamson tries to recover and punch it out at the end, but it's no shot. And it's just that little bit where you can still see when his processing is off, it's really off. And it puts him in a very disadvantageous position for the defense. Yikes.
So here's a play you talked about with Solomon on this nice little mesh right here. But I also want to credit not just Solomon surfing down the line of scrimmage here and physicality as he goes to make the tackle, but Williams does a great job too of avoiding that puller. We talked about, hey, teams is a copycat league. What do you think they're running here? This tackle's pulling right here.
Bro, so when they ran it, I literally was like, oh.
Yep. But watch Dorian Williams. He keys on it too. He avoids that block, and he's right there to make the tackle with Solomon. So I want to give him props. We're going to scrutinize this play because I do think, regardless of how Matt Milano pans out right now, I think it's pretty fair to say he's still struggling to come back and still working through the comeback. Dorian's going to see the field, I think, at a good rate this year. And so these type of plays and this type of scrutiny is really going to come in and week out when we're talking the film room.
Yeah, 100%. We no one gets a pass here on the show. Not even Josh Allen, which we get yelled at about all the time. So just kind of him reading it, diagnosing it, and then being able to stay underneath the block and shoot and help Solomon a little bit there to make that tackle. That's a good, that's what you want to see from him when things are clicking and his eyes are right. You see the athleticism pop. You see the ability to shoot gaps and make plays, and you see all the physical tools and traits that he has really start to pop. But if he gets misled or he bites on the wrong thing, he's just dead in the water and a sitting duck far too often.
All right. And here's we're going to show some of his, his chops as a pass rusher, as a rusher. Something, again, Matt Milano is asked to do a bunch. You see Williams mugging that A gap, and he's kind of adding on here. The running back stays in the block. You see physicality. You see him discard the running back right there. Really nice rush by Kingsley Jonathan off the edge, turn that corner, forcing the quarterback to step up in the pocket. But Williams discards the running back, boom. But then just watch him just attack like a missile. It's almost, like the quarterback is just meat. And here comes Dorian Williams ready to eat, right? And you see him just attack with that athleticism. So I do think he has that physicality and that attack mentality when you want to throw him in as an add-on rusher, whether that's like a green dog blitz. Hey, running back stays in the block. Guess what? You can add on as a rusher like you see here. I think that is where he can also make a difference when we're talking the passing game and attacking the quarterback as a rusher.
Yeah, the juice that he plays with, that short area quickness, the ability to close down on guys, like and plus the length and the strength makes him, like, in theory, be, strong in that area. I this rep was interesting because when I first saw it, I wanted him to just to, like, go through
Mhm.
this running back. Just take him on, go through him. You're bigger, longer, stronger, take him. But he allows the running back to kind of get into his chest. And so it's ugly initially. And then, yeah, he just chucks him like he's a child
Mhm.
and just like, all right, I've had enough of this. Get off me. And then, yeah, you see the feet, you see the close down. Like you said, it's almost like he sees the QB as meat and he's hungry and attacks. And then you see that length, you see that closing
Yeah.
ability, being able to get down and close down on a Bajent and kind of lunge for him and take him and bring him down and register that pressure and that QB hit. So it was again like an interesting rep to start with, how it started and then how he transitioned once he read. And again, being able to just lean into his physical ability instead of having to diagnose incorrectly.
And here's one where the Bears are trying to run a mesh concept. So you get the two crossers. And I love this collision right here with Williams. Right here, he takes it to the tight end and he throws the tight end and is so physical with the tight end, it throws off the other crossing route right there. You see him disrupt the timing there. And so when the quarterback steps up and hitches up to make that throw, it's off target. It's a bad throw. And there's really nothing there. It's very good coverage across the board. But that physicality, when you have a wide receiver or a tight end going across the middle on these shallow crossing routes, you're taught to, disrupt them, to hit them, to redirect them and reroute them. You see him do that here, and it just blows up the whole timing of this play. He's there at the catch point, but the ball is thrown right at the feet of the wide receiver or running back.
Yeah, this one was nice to see, like, him disrupting this at the collision point and then not only like discarding the tight end, but having the wherewithal to get his eyes to the other underneath route coming from Carter. And so not getting caught up in the physicality, not getting caught up in chucking the tight end, but just executing that piece and then moving on to the next phase in his responsibility, which is picking up the next man that's coming across and staying there in phase and making sure, that ball gets dirty. And even if that ball gets completed, he's right there to make the tackle.
And just great communication across the board. Let's give some love to everyone else. So you had this running back exiting out. You see Balin Spector call it out. There's the push call to the safety. So he's got the running back on that as he exits outside the tackle box. You get the two crossing routes. You see the collision right there. Now Daquan Hardy's trying to work over the top here. And he realizes that, you have a sit route right here. Elam's in his pocket. Watch him just sit and almost replace Dorian Williams right there in the middle to take that away. So great communication, kind of shows the coaching from the top down and how these depth players understand and communicate really well. And this play is completely blown up from top to bottom. And I think this is probably the last clip. And I want to give him props here, Dorian Williams, because he's up top. It's man coverage. This is a third down play. And you see him, as you said, matched up with, I think that's Everett up top. Bills are in two man, and he runs and just carries him down the field on third and long, takes him away. Unfortunately, that man coverage let Caleb Williams scramble for the first down, but good man-to-man coverage using the boundary as another defender and just carrying that tight end up the sideline to eliminate him as a threat.
Yeah, Everett is someone who Williams is going to have that athleticism advantage on. And so, Everett's going to have to really win technically in order to beat Dorian in that space there. And you just see him calm and comfortable, knowing like, okay, cool, have that outside release. Like, I'll be in trail. I'll catch up to you. I know what the coverage is. You see him, he's comfortable in that space, like manning up on tight ends or manning up with running backs out of the backfield. Especially like if it's declaring early, if it's just straight up man and he doesn't have to do any thinking or anything with it. It's nice to see him again, just be able to kind of play free and play loose and lean into it. But I think as much as people want him to be a thing, it still is that work in progress piece for him. And I think it's a different, and I hear like the statements of like, yeah, but at this time last year, nobody thought Bernard was going to be Terrell Bernard. So maybe it could be the same for Dorian. The college systems that they come from are just vastly different in terms of how pro ready Bernard was versus how pro ready
coming
Dorian
from an Aranda defense, like it's night and day versus Tulane.
What Bernard was asked, and especially Bernard's role in it as one of the prime communicators and signal caller, air traffic controller dudes for that Baylor defense. Yeah, it set him up to kind of be pro ready from the neck up already. So it's a bit of a different it's not apples to apples. It's more apples to oranges, even though they play the similar position. And again, every player's individual trajectory is different. So this doesn't mean, Dorian's behind and man, what a waste of a 3rd round pick and yada, yada. Maybe next year is Dorian's, Terrell Bernard year or something like that. And just given where he's coming from, it is still a work in progress to kind of tap into that athleticism and get him to where he needs to be from a processing standpoint in terms of his accuracy and efficiency overall with what he's seeing on the field. But Erik, anything else for the people here as we start to wind down? Something on this game against the Bears, something going forward against the Steelers? Is there something you're watching for in joint practices? Is it something you're focused on for the game? Anything and everything you want to share with the people before we say goodbye on this Wednesday afternoon?
No, I thought that was a good overview of the Playmakers and Heartbreakers of that Bills and Bears game. Steelers game, I want to see what the Bills are going to do, one, with the starters and how often they play or how much they play. But 12 personnel. Obviously, it's been the talk of the offseason with Knox and Kincaid. And, you're having guys like Zach Davison step up and Quentin Morris is still in the system. The Bills obviously want to run a bunch of 12 personnel. And so I want to see them kind of expand on, their offense, what they can do. We showed you many times in the film room how they were able to pass out of 12 personnel. And a lot of times it was a lot of those play action shot calls down the field. I want to see them, get that run game going out of the 12 personnel because they're going to be seeing when they run 12 personnel, you're going to see a lot of base defense from the Steelers, and they are a physical unit. And so if they want to improve and get better in the run rushing department, build upon, last week and show that they are playing physical and do want it more, because at times they didn't seem like they wanted it in that regard. This is the week to do it. You're going to be facing them in a joint practice, and then you're going to be facing them in the game. And so I think that is one way to set the tone for the year, because we have talked about how, physicality and running the ball is going to be their kind of identity and stuff that they can build off of that. I think 12 personnel is going to be a huge part of that. And so running that versus the Steelers based defense, I do want to see them, get some plays going and get some explosive plays off that personnel grouping.
I'm right there in lockstep with you, just more so focused on the overall run game and the offensive line in particular. Like, again, we'll see who plays for the Steelers, but between the joint practices and the game, like Benton and Adams and Ogunjobi and Watt and Hayward and Highsmith. I don't think Highsmith's going to play because he's got a groin, so they're probably going to keep him out. But the Steelers they have a really good squad of dudes individually, and then it just seems, I said on the show last night, it just seems like whoever the Pittsburgh Steelers sign forever, they just know like what Pittsburgh Steelers football is. Like they take on the mentality of that team. Yes, once they put on the helmet in that jersey, and then playing for Mike Tomlin, it's easy to kind of get into that mindset. He's a dude that players love, and he's a really good coach. So this is a team that if you wanted to kind of get yourself right off of a poor opening performance in the preseason, the Steelers are a good team to have joint practices with in a preseason game against, because they're going to bring intensity, physicality. They're well coached. They're also a team that beat the hell out of you last year in the preseason. So does that play a role a little bit? I'm excited to see this game, and just in terms of, I don't want to say it's a get right game for the preseason because it's the preseason, but just seeing what the Bills bring from an intensity standpoint, from a physicality standpoint, just an execution and technicality perspective. Like, because the Bears took it to the Bills. The Steelers will do that times 1,000 with what their identity is and the players that they have on top of it offensively and defensively. So
and that defensive structure and overall, that odd front 3-4 type look, it seems to give the Bills issues at times. And so, again, I think it's a good test if we're talking the joint practices and the preseason game to go along with the Steeler mentality and brand of football. It's a good team to match up with in these practices and in the game.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Yeah, those odd fronts, and then coupled with the players that they have playing within those fronts, it can be brutal. They just play a good brand of football. And then also down the other side of the ball too, like George Pickens is a monster. Let's see like who's ready to match metal with metal. The Steelers' offensive line has gotten better this year with the additions that they've had. So
yeah, I watched them today. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Those guys like Zach Frazier, like he already looks the part.
He had a good look. His first like 4 plays were so money in that game for the Steelers. The offensive lineman, that line is improved, and they are creating some displacement. So yeah, the Bills
Bills front seven, they got their hands full regardless of who's starting on the defensive side of the ball for the Bills. Like the Steelers offensive line looks much improved, and they're going to try to run it right down the throat of the Bills.
Yeah, with, Broderick Jones, and then they draft Fautanu, they draft Zach Frazier. They signed last year Malu, who was the starting guard for Philly the year before. Like, they are built to mash you up front. And then that also fits with their identity. And then you package that with Fields and Wilson as your quarterbacks, and like their offense is going to start with the run game and then building upon that from a play action standpoint. They traded Deontay Johnson. They're not loaded at receiver. This is a team that wants to get at you and get down, and run through your face. So yeah, it'll be nice to see how the Bills front, combats that after, we saw them really have to bring numbers to try and stop the Bears run game early on. And then on top of that, still not being able to contain things on the perimeter. So it'll be a nice adjustment game for this Buffalo Bills team. But regardless of that, that'll do it for us here in this episode. This, again, afternoon edition of the Cover One Film Room. We appreciate you folks who joined us live here in this episode. Before you go, if you can, please drop a like on this video. That goes a sincerely long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. If you're watching post live, that's cool too. Please still drop a like on this video. Either way, subscribe to the Cover One channel here on YouTube. Turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room and to the Cover One channel. Again, as a whole, we have you covered with a variety of shows with varying levels of content. Whatever your fix or your need is, we have you covered here for the Buffalo Bills and some football stuff in general. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome the show is and the brand and the channel and all that stuff. Erik, anything else before we say our final goodbye?
No, thanks for tuning in, guys. I know the time was a little different than what we normally do. But again, trying to wrap up this preseason week one, and I thought that was fun. I love the segment we have with the Playmakers and Heartbreakers. Hopefully you guys got, something out of that. And if you disagree, let us know in the comments. If you have someone else that you want to highlight or, mention as a low light in this game, let us know, because this is something we'll be doing for the rest of the preseason. But again, thanks for everyone for tuning in live and during the replays later on tonight.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, folks, wherever you live. If you live in the Western New York area, it's a beautiful day outside. Go enjoy the rest of your evening and day. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We'll see you next week. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.